Good Monday to everybody in com/gov603. Welcome to, are you ready for this? Week, boom, bam, bang. Week 16. You made it. End of the semester. Ooh. Let's finish the last of this morning's coffee before we get started with this video. Okay, welcome everybody. This is really video for week 15 and 16 because I told you back in week 14 that there wasn't going to be a video for week 15, and there wasn't. Thanksgiving week, you had just a teensy bit to do. I hope you had an enjoyable holiday, Thanksgiving. I got to spend some time with family, got to do some cooking, got to do some cleaning, got to do some grading. So time well spent. Okay, last week of the class, huzzah. Strangely enough, the class ends on Saturday, December 7th. All right, but really for all intents and purposes, it ends on Friday. So for this video, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to go over some things that, you might, if you haven't already, focus on in your preparation for the final exam. Now, for this week, of course, what you should be doing is finishing up those final papers, which are due on December 4th. All right. And then your exam opens up in the wee hours of the morning on December 5th, and will close at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on December 6th. Okay. If you have any issues and there's anything hanging you up and you need to talk with me, and you have any accommodations that need to be taken care of that we haven't discussed already, okay, please get in touch with me well before Friday. Get in touch with me by Wednesday the 4th. All right, because Thursday, Friday, the registrar wants grades, and they are on my case, man. So, I do not have a lot of time between when the module in Canvas shuts down. All right. There's a limit to when I can put stuff into the system, and then when I have to have it all pulled together and sent to the registrar. So really, although technically, in terms of the calendar, it ends on Saturday the 7th. And I wonder if that's like 12:01 or something like that, if that's what they mean. For our purposes, it ends on Friday. So if you have anything that you need to go over with me before Wednesday, please. Okay. This week, this video, I'm going to go through some things, if you haven't, I'm sure you probably focused on this. You've been focusing on this all semester, but some things that you should make sure that you have your head around for the final exam. All right. But when you start it on Friday, please read the instructions carefully. This is a closed book, no internet connection exam. One tab open in your browser, and that's the one in which you're taking the exam, and no outside source material. Okay. A couple of things you should know. All right. Canvas they run a couple of programs in the background, and one of them checks your text that you put into an answer box against stuff off the World Wide Web. So if in any way, shape, or form you're copying and pasting, you're going to get found out. If you open another tab, or if you open another browser while you're taking this exam, you're going to get found out. And, per the instructions, since this is closed, no internet, no textbook, stuff like that. If you get found out, I'm going to give you a Z. I'm going to have to give you a 0. And I don't want to give you a 0. I want everybody to do well. Okay. Do your own work. All right. Even if you're not sure of the answer, take your best stab at it. I'll give you partial credit if you're anywhere in the ballpark. All right. I want to hear what you have to say about this. So read those instructions carefully and follow them specifically. All right. Let's take a look at some things. These are sort of must knows for the exam. Make sure that you are familiar with the discussion questions week by week. That's what I base the exam off of, just sort of a big picture. Make sure that you understand the basic definitions of things we've gone over this semester. So for instance, the designations for quantitative research. What does N mean? What does R mean? What does R squared mean? What does P mean? Right? You should have these things just boom, boom, boom. Not only be able to identify them, but be able to explain them. definitions, things that we've gone over. What do we mean when we say recreational research? What's the difference between correlation and causation? Okay, and could you write a short answer question with an example? Think of an example that would explain that. Okay, why, when we say empirical research, does this dictate? Why does it need a design? By way of terms and you understanding what they mean. What do blind spots mean? We say researcher blind spots, and why do they exist? Could you write a short answer that would explain that? Okay. What's the difference between a hypothesis and a research question? And what are the three fundamental elements of a hypothesis? And could you construct one if you were asked to? Okay. Again, by way of term definition, what's the difference between mean, median, and mode? Can you explain those terms if you're called on, or if you were given an example of a set of numbers and you were asked to find the mean, median, and mode, be able to do that? Okay. Know things like the Pareto distribution. What is this, and what does it speak to? Some real, this should be fundamental stuff. Be able to tell the difference between a bar graph, a line graph, a scatter plot graph, and what do they signify? If I gave you an example of a graph and I say, what does this suggest concerning the outcome, correlation, causation, uptrend, downtrend, be able to read that and give me an answer. Okay. In constructing and writing up your research, what are the fundamental elements of a research paper, and what are they for? What's an introduction for? What's a literature review for? What is a methodology section for? Okay. And in writing up your research, why should you be cautious of single causal explanations, especially when it comes to human behavior? In fact, speaking of causal explanations, why should researchers be concerned with causal explanations at all? Okay, within your research, and concerning their research, what is, say, outside of the research project, what is external validity, and why does it matter? Could you explain the difference between the quantitative and the qualitative research methodologies, these two big fields? Okay. What's a confidence interval? Okay. What's stratified random sampling? These terms we've been going over. Okay. What's a regression analysis, and what does it tell you? Remember the regression analysis that we did concerning the COVID data. What did you learn about the causal relationship between the independent and the dependent variable? Remembering that exercise, which was the independent and which was the dependent variable? Okay. Concerning, say, concerning personal identity, is that best used as an independent or a dependent variable? Okay. Even though it came in the last week, be familiar with the readings from Orwell and his suggestions for you as a writer. All right. Let's see. What's a case study, and what are they useful for? Are they any use? Are they any good for testing theories? Why would you do a case study? If you were doing any kind of study and you had multiple variables and you're like, okay, I really am only interested in this particular variable, and you created a dummy variable, what would that mean? Could you explain that? Okay. Could you define a dummy variable? Could you explain the difference between, speaking of variables, and how we classify data? What's the difference between the classification of data that's categorical or continuous? And could you give an example? as to why that's important. Remember the discussion that we had about gender, sex, okay, and why and how it is that we classify some things categorical and some things as continuous. Okay, what's critical junction analysis? Right, back to some of the terms as opposed to comparative historical analysis. Could you explain the difference between those two? Okay, excuse me. Why is it more difficult to measure trends in politics, at least according to your authors, than economics? Okay. I guess the last thing, could you write an example? Could you write a short answer in which you've heard this from me, I don't know, like 100 times during the semester, that my injunction, my dictate, my advice to you is that as a researcher, you should act as an investigator, not an advocator. What did I mean by that? Right? And what does that mean? Could you explain that? If you can, if you can hit those things and be able to either identify them, match them, or explain them, you're going to kill this exam. All right. You will have no problems. Okay. I hope that's value to you. And it's funny in communication, there's direct communication, there's indirect communication, there's text and there's subtext. So in watching this video, if you weren't watching my eyes, which you should be, and in watching my eyes, there's a subtext to the main text that is me going through various material. That should be an indicator to you that if you study, in particular, you have command of the things that we've just gone through, then that's your key to doing well in this exam. And I'm not going to say any more. All right, everybody, have a terrific week. Finish your papers, prepare for the exam. You're almost done. And then you get a little, bit of a rest on the other side to prepare ourselves for the coming of our Lord, because this last Sunday was the first Sunday of Advent, which it's extremely old. It goes back, probably to the 4th century. It's the 300s. It comes from the Latin phrase, adventus est. He is coming. All right. Adventare, to arrive. He is coming. And it is timed and is set to the season that we happen to be in. So we start on, what was yesterday, December 1st, the first Sunday of Advent. And then as we go, we end right at the winter solstice, all right, which is December 21st, which is the darkest, longest night. I say darkest, longest night of the year. And then the next day, the 22nd, the light comes back into the world, which is the light of Christ. Okay. And then we go 22nd, 23rd, 24th. 3 days, which align themselves with the Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Okay. 24th. This is the eve of the message, the coming of the Christ, okay, from which we get the word Christmas. Christus mise, the message, or it says mise Christi, the message that Christ has come. And that's the 25th, Christus, the mise, okay, missa est. The message has gone out. All right. So many blessings on you this week. I'm thinking about you. I'm praying for you as you finish your papers and your preparation. I know you got a lot of other things to do. Again, if there's anything that you need, I'll be keeping office hours this week. Reach out to me. And as always, I'll see you on campus. God bless and goodbye.